rainfall have no impact. But elsewhere you find that the nature itself does a good deal of the work that we ought to be doing in terms of recharge. We now have a national groundwater recharge master plan. Some of you might have seen this. It's developed by the Central Groundwater Board, and basically the aim is to increase, enhance annual groundwater recharge by 37 billion cubic meters by spending some 25,000 crores on creating groundwater recharge tracks. The problem that I have with this thing is that it's based entirely on availability of non-committed surface water. So the thesis is that wherever you have uncommitted surface water supplies available for recharge, you invest all your recharge money. It so happens that most of that water is available in Eastern India. But Eastern India does not need recharge. We need recharge most in Western India and in Peninsular India. But there you don't have large amount of uncommitted surplus surface water. So unless you rethink the allocation of surface water, the recharge story on a large scale will just not take off. And unless we do something like that, the future of agriculture in Western Peninsular India is basically is at risk. The distributed rainwater harvesting and groundwater recharge, at least in these regions, can be a big part of the solution. Saurashtra and Kutch are great examples because these are two regions which have experienced large-scale water harvesting and groundwater recharge after 1990. Initially, it was just a mass movement by people and religious organizations, local NGOs. But then in 1998-99, it became a government scheme, and this turned out to be one scheme which worked. It was liberal, it was implemented in a flexible manner. The politicians had put their heart and their money where their mouth was, and therefore the scheme actually did work. In Gujarat built something like 200,000 check dams, and it modified 300,000 open wells for recharge. And now the long-term impacts of this are beginning to become evident. I and a colleague from International Food Policy Research Institute, we just last week we released a paper in which we argued that Gujarat, which has never been known for a vibrant agriculture sector, has in the past 7 years posted the highest rate of agriculture growth in India. Gujarat's agriculture economy grew at 9.5 to 10%, when the national agriculture growth rate has been just 2.5%. And this kind of a rally in agriculture performance cannot come about unless the entire state is involved. It cannot be that 10% of Gujarat's agriculture grows at 50% and the rest does not grow. So the rally has to be all over. It has to be in Kutch, it has to be in Saurashtra, it has to be in North Gujarat, it has to be in very heavily canal irrigated South Gujarat. So the hypothesis that we have, which we haven't yet tested, is that the small investments that Gujarat has made in the past 15 years in rainwater harvesting and distributed groundwater recharge are now paying huge dividends. Dividends which are far beyond anyone's imagination. And what is probably happening is this, that in Saurashtra and Kutch, in 3 out of 5 years, there is a drought because the monsoon withdraws in September instead of in October. So farmers have an entire crop ready, it's almost ready to be harvested, but we need just one last irrigation, one last rainfall. And in 3 out of 5 years, that rainfall doesn't come. So that has been the bane of agriculture in Gujarat and Kutch. Wells are empty in October because there was no effort to harvest rainwater. But what this rainwater harvesting work has done is that in large swaths of this area, there is enough water even in a drought year in the wells to provide that life-saving irrigation. This means that the kharif crop, the main monsoon crop for the entire region has been ensured, which adds something like 7,000-8,000 crores to the region's agricultural income. In good years, when the monsoon is normal and they get the 800 mm of rainfall, there is enough water in the wells for even a good rabi crop. And therefore, the major reason for agriculture growth in Gujarat has been a couple of million hectares addition to rabi cultivation. Rabi cultivation is not possible unless you have a source of irrigation, that is in winter crops. What this rainwater harvesting movement has done is that it has made rabi crops possible in a good monsoon year, and it has ensured kharif crop insurance in a good year. So what used to happen, this is what used to happen earlier, that the last monsoon doesn't come and therefore your entire kharif crop fails. Now what happens is that in a good year, you not only have a well-insured kharif crop, but you also take a good rabi crop and actually have a small summer crop as well. Even if the monsoon withdraws early, you have enough water to take another Rabi crops. So I think Gujarat has large examples or large scale areas where no single NGO can take credit. It's actually people's movement which has done this, which shows that if we just change the way we store water, monsoon water, we can actually change the agriculture future of a region. And India has great advantages. And when I was earlier saying that we are learning our lessons about recharge systems from Australia and the Western US. But Australia and Western US have large swaths of unoccupied land which they can convert into recharge basins. We just don't have that kind of land. Maybe if we want to create recharge basins, we're able to do that. But we have 8 or 9 million open large wells, each with a storage of 500 to 800 meters, which farmers have made at their own cost. And we don't see this as, if you look at a well in Kolar, it is 60, 70 feet wide and it's 70, 80, there are steps to go inside. It's a huge storage structure. It can also be a great recharge structure. But the farmers have never looked at wells as recharge structure. They have basically looked at wells as one-way traffic, that you just keep pumping water out of it. But you can easily reinvent a well as a recharge structure. So it's a pity that we are not using such a large number of wells that we already have as recharge structures, especially in hard rock areas, where large open dug wells proliferate, and where the entire agriculture is dependent on shallow circulation of groundwater, where you are not actually exploring deep groundwater. You are most 70–80% of the water that you are pumping out is probably water that accumulated last monsoon or last two monsoons. So there, large open wells can become, have the potential to become very important. There is also a dire need for big ticket solutions to groundwater demand management. And here there is a lot of talk about laws and regulations. And the empirical experience as well as intuitive thinking doesn't seem to suggest that this can be a big part of the solution in our country for a long time to come. Maybe a time will come when it will be possible for us to impose some kind of discipline through legal and administrative means. But just imagine, there are 2 crore pump owners. They are scattered all over the countryside. If you cannot even implement simple norms like siting norms, that if you make one tube well, another tube well cannot come in less than 1,000 meters or 500 meters depending upon the, if you can't implement such simple things, how can you implement things like banning wells or imposing a ration quota, groundwater quota, as they do in the Western US? So we need to find some big ticket ways in which you can control. One approach that Gujarat has tried in the past 7 years is, I think it's ingenious, and it has a great deal of potential. What Gujarat has done is that it has separated, it has spent 1,200 crore rupees in rewiring the countryside. What they have done is that they have taken out their 780,000 electric tube wells, and they have put them on a separate feeder. So earlier, there was a feeder would come out from a substation, go to a village, tube wells were connected to that feeder, the rice mills were connected to that feeder, households were connected to that feeder, schools, libraries, dairy cooperatives, all of them were connected to the same feeder. Now when the government tried to ration power supply to farmers, what it was doing is that 3-phase power would be supplied for 6 or 7 or 8 hours, and then for the rest of the day, single phase or 2-phase power would come. The assumption was that households can meet all the requirements using single phase power. Tube wells need 3-phase power. So there is an indirect way of rationing. In Gujarat, what is happening is that farmers routinely use a device called capacity to run heavy duty tube wells on 2-phase power or even single phase power. Now basically what this does is that it just destroys the power supply environment downstream. The voltage would go down, in the household, in the homes, the lights would not work, the fans wouldn't work, in the schools, the battery equipment would not work. So it had become a big menace. Actually, the entire rural society was paying a huge price for the tyranny of the tube well owner. Now, by separating these tube well connections and by connecting the entire non-farm rural sector to a totally different set of feeder lines, Gujarat made it possible to intelligently ration farm power supply. So Gujarat farmer now gets 8 hours or 7 hours, 8 hours of 420 to 430 voltage power at predetermined schedule. If a village is supposed to get power at 8 o'clock in the evening, power comes to that village at 8 o'clock.